Well, you just picked the wrong guy for what you want.
Did I?
Yeah, I'm not in the market.
I wasn't shopping.
Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, quite a couple. Accomplished actors, A-listers before there was an A-list.
Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward are a rare breed of Hollywood couple whose names represent enduring stardom and a genuine, deep-seated love that lasted over 50 years. Their story began on Broadway and thrived on the set of The Long Hot Summer, evolving through a life filled with family, philanthropy, and joy for children at summer camps. When Newman passed away in 2008, the public remembered his awards and striking blue eyes, while the family cherished deeper, more personal memories. Beginnings on Broadway.
You can see how it was like, a snowball rolling down a hill. They found each other.
And that was it.
The story starts in 1953 with the Broadway production of Picnic, where Paul Newman, then married to Jackie Whitty, first met a young Georgia-born actor named Joanne Woodward. Their professional chemistry was there, but the future wasn't written yet. A few years later, the pair returned for The Long Hot Summer in 1957, and what had been friendly familiarity crystallized into something life-shaping. By January 29, 1958, they were married in Las Vegas, stepping into a partnership that would last 5 decades. From the outset, their relationship intertwined with their work. They collaborated on multiple projects, often flipping the usual power dynamic. Woodward had already broken through, an Academy Award winner, while Newman's ascent was still in motion, and his admiration for her craft never dimmed. He would direct her in films like Rachel, Rachel, where her artistry mixed with marriage in ways that challenged both. Their collaborations were not just vehicles for accolades, but laboratories for their evolving respect, humor, and candor, qualities that would be cited years later as part of the secret to their endurance. By the late 60s, the two made history together. In 1969, Woodward earned a Best Actress nomination, and Newman, as producer and director, vied for Best Picture with Rachel, Rachel. A rare moment when a family project stood shoulder to shoulder with industry giants. The same period produced personal snapshots that, in later accounts by family and friends, hinted at the easy intimacy they carried off-screen. The glamour was real, but so was the domesticity. They were as likely to be found talking through a scene as they were to be found in a kitchen, a garage, or a backyard swing, plotting ordinary days around extraordinary careers. Their public aura, magnetic, witty, self-deprecating, was matched by private habits that made the long haul possible. They laughed often, worked hard, and tended to one another's strengths. Decades later, those who knew them best would describe their shared humor as the ballast that kept their ship steady. A home, 6 children, and the weight of loss.
Somebody once said, "What is your relationship based on?" And I said, "He's very good looking and very sexy and all of those things, but all that goes out the window finally, and what finally is left is if you can make somebody laugh, then that's very important."
Keep her laughing.
And he sure does keep me laughing. So.
Marriage turned into a family quickly. Woodward became stepmother to Newman's 3 children from his first marriage, Scott, Susan, and Stephanie, and together she and Newman welcomed 3 daughters, Eleanor, Nell, Melissa, and Claire, Clea. Much of the family's life settled in Westport, Connecticut, where the rhythms of school, pets, sports, and homework coexisted with scripts, rehearsals, and shoots. If the country saw a screen idol and an Oscar winner, the kids saw parents who made bread, organized closets, tinkered with projects, and insisted on laughter at the dinner table. The household held both theater tickets and toolboxes. Woodward taught, produced, and championed causes. Newman toggled between cameras and carburetors, as comfortable with a pool cue and a frosted beer as he was with a monologue or a charity board agenda. Their children later recalled the sillier side of a man who cut loose with grandkids and the steadfastness of a mother who could scrub a kitchen spotless and then slip into evening wear without missing a beat. It wasn't an ordinary life by any measure, but it kept one foot planted on the floor. That footing mattered when tragedy struck. In 1978, Newman's eldest child, Scott, died at 28 from an accidental overdose. In his posthumous memoir, Newman wrestled openly with grief and regret, acknowledging how often he had misread the stakes of a son's struggle until it was too late. The response to loss became a part of the family's pattern. Grief, then action. Newman founded the Scott Newman Center to address drug abuse education. The family's life, viewed from outside, looked effortless. Up close, it was complex. Parenting across blended lines, navigating fame's odd demands, and absorbing the shockwaves of a devastating death, called for the same virtues their friends admired in their art: patience, edits, second takes, and an unwavering devotion to the final cut. From stardom to service.
What could be better than to hold your hand out to people who are less fortunate than you are? That's simply the way I look at it.
In the 80s, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward shaped a remarkable philanthropic legacy, founding the Hole in the Wall Gang camp in 1988 in Ashford, Connecticut. The camp offered children with serious illnesses a week of joy without financial burden, evolving into a model of dignified care with activities like horses, ropes courses, and talent shows. Newman's persona, cool and charming, contrasted with his quieter role as a dedicated fundraiser and groundskeeper, who balanced donor calls with sweeping the dining hall. Their philanthropic vision expanded into the Serious Fun Children's Network, a global collection of camps sharing the mission of restoring childhood joy and providing families with respite. Newman's daughters later recalled how he pushed beyond his comfort zone to ensure these programs thrived, embodying philanthropy as presence rather than just financial support. Woodward played a parallel role, exemplifying work-life balance with practical commitment. She taught acting, supported regional theater, mentored young performers, and drew attention to important causes. New images and stories from their children reveal the quieter moments of their lives together, highlighting the character-building experiences outside the spotlight. During a 1990 commencement address at Sarah Lawrence College, Newman succinctly advised, "The best thing you can give yourself is the gift of possibility." Their journey was marked by accolades, a handful of Emmys, Globes, and Kennedy Center honors, but those who knew them often recall not the awards, but their contributions to camps, quiet generosity, and heartfelt connections. Later years.
Joanne gave him his confidence. Joanne taught him to believe in himself. Joanne taught him to love himself. When somebody asked her why their marriage worked, she said, "There's my ego, and there's his ego, and there's our ego. And when we're both in service of our ego, we can do anything."
In the early 2000s, the public saw a couple still showing up for each other on red carpets, at fundraisers, in interviews that balanced wit with candor. Newman's famous quip about fidelity, quote, "I have a steak at home, why go out for hamburger," became a cultural shorthand for his devotion to Woodward. The line's longevity owns something to its humor, but more to the visible evidence behind it: a man who stayed and a woman who remained his first audience and North Star. After Newman's death, a fuller, more complex portrait emerged through two major windows. The first was his posthumous memoir, Paul Newman, The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man, published with the help of family access to transcripts he once had destroyed. In those pages, he stripped away varnish with a craftsman's discipline, admitting the shortcomings and temptations that came with fame and exploring how Woodward changed his self-understanding. He wrote that before meeting her, he, quote, "felt like a goddamn freak, a happy buffoon," and that with her, he, quote, "went from being not much of a sexual threat to something else entirely." The memoir contains one of the most quoted lines in later reporting on their marriage, quote, "Joanne gave birth to a sexual creature." The second window opened in 2022 with Ethan Hawke's docuseries The Last Movie Stars, made in cooperation from the Newman-Woodward family. Hawke described a couple who didn't take themselves too seriously, who shared a natural humility and a sense of humor that kept even their heaviest seasons buoyant. On January 29, 2008, they marked 50 years of marriage. That same year, on September 26th, Newman died at 83 at the family farmhouse near Westport, Connecticut. What Joanne Woodward did the moment he died.
When my father was dying, my mother, she didn't want to be in the room. And so we were walking around in the living room, and then she looked at me and she said, "I have to go to him." And she walked in and just grabbed his feet, and he took his last breath. You know, even in death, the last person he wanted to connect with was her.
The final scene of Paul Newman's life unfolded without any theatrics. His daughter Claire shared a poignant detail that captures the moment's significance. As Newman lay dying, Joanne Woodward was not initially present. Claire and her mother wandered around the living room, absorbing the gravity of the situation. Then Joanne paused, looked at Claire, and declared, "I have to go to him." Her recollection is direct and profound. She describes how, despite her initial reluctance to be in the room, Joanne felt compelled to connect with Paul in his final moments. She walked over and grasped his feet, and as he took his last breath, the intimacy of the gesture spoke volumes. Even in death, she was the one he sought. Now it's time to hear from you. When you think about that final moment, what does it reveal to you about the way they lived their marriage? Let us know in the comments section below.